Hello everybody, Ashraf here from Ash English. Lovely to have you here. One of the fastest ways to start sounding more natural when you speak English is to use contractions. They are essential in mastering the rhythm and flow of spoken English. Using contractions is an absolute must if you want to skyrocket the level of your English. So, let's dive in and practice contracting that little word had. Okay, number one, I'd. I'd is the contraction of I had. I'd. Repeat with me, I'd. 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 Let's have an example. I'd never seen so much money in my life. In this case, instead of I had never, we say I'd never. Okay? Listen and repeat. I'd never seen so much money in my life. Okay? Next. I felt absolutely certain that I'd seen her before. I'd seen her before. Okay, next. It sounds like a great party. I wish I'd been there. Okay? I'd. I wish I'd said that. I wish I'd said that. Repeat with me. Okay, next. I'd. She said I'd been cheating. I'd been cheating. Repeat with me. Okay. Next. You'd. You had. You had becomes you'd. The contraction of you had is you'd. Repeat with me. You'd. One more time. You'd. Okay. Let's have an example. You'd just left when he came. Instead of saying you had, we say you'd just left when he came. Okay. Next. You'd. It happened just after you'd left the room. You'd left the room. Repeat after me. You'd. Alright, next. You'd. If you'd been more careful, this wouldn't have happened. Okay, next. She had. She'd. She had. She'd. She'd. She'd forgotten to lock the door. She had becomes she'd. She'd forgotten to lock the door. Alright, next, she'd. She'd been arrested for a murder. Instead of she had been, we say she'd been. She'd been arrested for a murder. Arrested for a murder. For a becomes for. Alright, next. She had, she'd. She'd found the answer at last. Next, she'd. She'd already gone when we got there. She'd already gone. Okay, next. Alright, next, he'd. He had. The contraction of he had is he'd. He'd. Let's have an example. He knew he'd seen her before. He'd. Okay. Next. He had. He'd. He'd rung up to discuss the party. He'd rung up. Alright. He had seen becomes he'd seen. He'd seen every moment of his life. He'd seen. Okay. Next. He'd. By the time I got there, he'd gone. He'd gone. Alright. Next contraction is we'd. Wheat or wheat. Wheat is the strong pronunciation and wheat is the weak pronunciation. Wheat or wheat. Alright, let's have an example. We'd just missed the bus. Instead of we had, we say wheat or wheat. We'd just missed the bus. Okay, next. We had better becomes we'd better or we'd better. We'd better be more careful in the future. Next, we'd or wheat. I'm not sure if we'd met her before. We'd met her before. Okay, next. We'd already eaten. We had becomes we'd or wheat. Okay, they'd. They'd. Repeat with me, they'd. Instead of saying they had, we say they'd. Contraction of they had. Okay, let's have an example. They'd better be here on time. Here on time. They'd better. Okay. Next. I thought they'd gone to London. They'd gone to London. They'd. They'd. He knew they'd met somewhere before. They'd. Okay, next. They'd. They'd only been there 10 minutes. They'd only been there 10 minutes. Okay, next. Next contraction is it'd. 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 This is the contraction of it had. It'd. It'd. Repeat with me, it'd. Let's have an example. It had been a difficult night. It had been a difficult night. Okay. I thought it'd be better to wait until later. It'd. It'd. It'd be better if we finished it today. It'd be better if we finished it today. Okay. Alright guys, so that wraps up the lesson for contracting the word had. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, definitely please share with your friends. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. Cheers guys.